Hello and welcome to Geekatplay Studio tutorials. In these tutorials, we will continue working with Filter Forge application, and we're going to look how the tilt and shift filter was putting together. And we want to create it from scratch, this filter. I just want going and analyze how this filter works, so it will help you to maybe work with other filters to see how they was created. So as a beginning, we can go and click on a filter editor and we'll go to edit this filter. So let's open. On the first glance, you'll see we have a lot of different options, and this is actually not one of the biggest filter, it's a small one, but it still sometimes feel like you lost in this image all of these nodes. So let's go ahead and identify first of them that will help us. If you see any gray color one, those is controls that provide for the user. So in some cases you can ignore them. We'll kind of look on them next, but first we can, how say, just ignore and don't worry about this. So what we start first, it's trace our beginning, and this is input node image. You notice from this image beginning we have two um, connections. One which going to the blur node, and it's very nice because we can read all the nodes, so we can instantly see what's happening. And next to sharpen node. From blur node, you can see we have two connections where we're working on the set alphas for the bottom and top part of the image. And again, because if it's tilt and shift, you will notice on the it's kind of sharp on the middle, but we have it blur on the sides. Okay, next we have it combining for this. We also processed image, add sharpness, correct some levels, and blending those two images together. And the next, you notice we also apply maybe some additional, in this case, hue and saturation. So if we're going back now from how we set alpha, you notice we have it, we're creating from our gradients control. We also have our rotation, which is both combined to the same angle, because we need same angle rotation for this, which allowed us to make vertical or horizontal, any other angle for the sharpness strip. And we're going next to set to new alpha. So let's look on some details. Right here you will notice we also have some if statements function that is a little bit more advanced. We also have a subtract and another if statement for both of them. So let's look what we have, reason why we're using them. The one we have the free gradient, and gradient is help us to create this adjustment level we can find in our component sections. The problem is only when you start creating and the reason why we're creating free gradient for this, so we can have it map this to the image bound. This is kind of very important, because if we're going inside and we're going to the gradients and we'll start using just profile gradient or any other, the problem with this, they will start repeating itself. So as example, let's go ahead and load an image, and we will loading not standard image, we're loading maybe a very wide image that is can be a little bit different from the standard. Okay, for this one we'll just exit, and I don't want to save yet this one. We'll go to the file and go to open image. Okay, so right here I have a wide image. Okay, and now let's go back to edit hours. And you can notice we have a wide image, and this is kind of stretched. So if we you going can use a different type of gradient for this, you'll see right here we start repeating our pattern. So even we rotating, it's work okay for the maybe wide, but again, if for some reason we decide to work with a tall image, we will see repetition happening exactly same as happening right here. So we cannot use those ones type of gradients. One we wanted that is allowed us to use the image bound or maximum size, give it us a little bit more control and stretch all the way in our image. So, but also next, what are we going to look on these gradients? We notice we have a start y and x, which is attached to our sliders and help us control. If we don't have it any problem with the start y and x, what's happening sometimes if we increase, okay, let's go set this way, they kind of flip. You can see we have a too wide going to the point when our um, start y over exceed our end y, we start having these artifacts happen to our effect. So it's kind of flipping and all these values. We needed to control this, and in a way we can control it is by setting on the values. And what happening right here, we just verifying. We'll take our and y, and we'll go inside creating if, and we say if our start y equal less or than end y, then we'll take our end y, will minus some small values and replacing. So in this case, we don't, our start y never over exceed our end y. So it's just a very simple logic rule, and it's allowed us to control. If we're going, okay, let me go right here. So it's allowed us to control our brackets. So even we'll take our brackets and for some reason decide to over exceed all the way one or another, all what we end up right here, you can see with a very sharp kind of line between blur or not blur. Let me even pop up blur level up high so we can see it, and it's never will happen this kind of flipping. So we needed apply changes to our filter to prevent from all this possible effect that may happen. It doesn't mean a user can when you start working with this filter, and if we don't have this prevention, you can still kind of see and work along with those adjustments, but this is just additional safety that make a little bit nicer to work with your filter. So we also have the same things applied for another gradients. Next we're going to add rotation, and a reason why we have rotation, so in case if I want to have it my blur going vertically or any other shape, I can go ahead inside and you can see I can kind of rotate angles for this. So on the reasons why originally I added this, so with tilt and shift, sometimes if you have to work with lens, you maybe want to create kind of angling type blur, or maybe even use it for different effect. So this will have a little bit more flexibility with our filter. Okay, next we'll set alpha, and we using source our image with the blur that we control from pre-blurring before. Okay, and also we're going to connect as a source, and we're using new alpha, our mask that we created before. Notice right here on the blur, what I also did, I remap it and I set high maximum. So this is used in slider. On that case, when we modify our blur in our filter, it doesn't have this very big jump in blurring. It's give us a little bit more defined type of the blur, so you can control very easy with lower levels or just slightly increasing in blurring. And this is the reason why I was increasing at a maximum value and also remapping. Also right here you can notice, let me move slider just a little bit up so we see the connection. Well, we'll go back to this saturation in a second. Till we're here, we also I apply sharpener, and reason is why we want to have this little bit more distinguished with it in shift, a little bit higher sharpener, so we apply additional options that you can increase your sharpener or decreasing as well. If you side images with tilt and shift, the some levels we start have a little bit darker black, a little bit overexposure, maybe white, so we have a slight adjustment on the levels. Next, we're going inside the blend where we kind of mix together between our blur and our image that not blurred. We're using the normal mode here, and also I set opacity all the way to the 100, so we don't kind of apply it in changing in a way the overall blur going. The reason is why, because it will be, if we give this control as well to the user, what's happening will start duplicating between blur level right in this area and this, so it will be kind of duplicate of the control. In some cases you need to watch for this. And our last one is have it hue and saturations, and again this is just saturation control, so you can add a little bit more colors, and again in tilt and shift in a processing can give it a little bit more kind of interesting miniature type details when you have it higher contrast and brighter colors, so kind of haze, take it away. And of course in the end we have it our end filter result. So this is kind of how I'm going when I'm analyzing filters, and start all out from the beginning. You can see all process. Next we'll separating on controls areas, like for example, okay, this area, we'll say this one is control area, that is apply effect to our filter. Okay, and as a result we have it our tilt and shift filter that applied, that we can use it for enhanced details or simulating some other effect. Also when you're creating filter or analyzing, just you can go ahead and create your own preset. It doesn't matter if it's your filter or you find some other filter you like to use but you want to maybe often used with your own presets, you always can modify it. Go inside and just add preset. Okay, so we'll look on this filter and how it's create tilt and shift. Thank you for watching this tutorial from Geekatplay Studio. Please remember visit us on our web is www.geekatplay.com.